Hello, welcome to our podcast. We are the Haven community. We're a student-led organization, and our aim is to instill positive outlook on emotional health within the teenage community. Today, we're going to be doing a podcast relating to self-care. I'm your host, Claire.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Hello, I'm Sarah.
And hi, I'm Shoria.
And we're just going to be going through some questions and talking about different topics that relate to self-care. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. The first question is, why is self-care so important?
So I feel like self-care is so important, like especially for students, because we have like so much to do with school, homework, clubs, and sports, and so like we rarely find times just for ourselves. I mean, this is just for everyone, but for students especially, like we can barely find time throughout the day to just do what we want. So self-care is so important because it's like a way or like a method to like kind of get that time just for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like something special. It can really be anything. So yeah, that's kind of why it's so important to us and really anyone.
Yeah, I agree. So like even if we're not doing anything with like anyone at the time, we're still surrounded by so much people. So it's really hard to find some alone time to do the things you love by yourself, to really work on your mental health and stuff like that you can't work on with other people around. And that's why I think it's one of the most important things.
I agree with everyone. I feel like it really prevents you from burning out and it re-energizes you. So like if you have to go to a social setting, you're all set, but you really have the time for yourself to take care of yourself without other people.
Yeah, that's true. Like a couple of you guys have mentioned, being by yourself and having that alone time can really contribute to just the idea of self-care, which leads me to the next question is, how does self-care look different for everyone? I guess, what do you guys do to practice self-care? Like, what's your favorite way basically to unwind if you're having a stressful day or anything like that?
So like one thing I learned was like self-care is like very different like for everyone. Like even though we're talking about how like it's like nice to be alone sometimes, some people actually find self-care like through social settings. But like for me personally, I feel like I find self-care when I'm alone. So like if I'm walking and just like listening to music, that's like one way for me to like find the time. But yeah, there's just so many different like ways that to find it. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's like a lot of ways you can take care of yourself with like um and it doesn't have to be physical either. You could just be laying down and be in your thoughts, or or you could even sleep if you want to. It's just the idea of de-stressing yourself and making yourself more happy.
I personally, my type of self-care is just sleeping and like watching movies and just laying down and not doing anything. So, and I want to be alone because I'm always, at school and everything's so social there. But like when I'm alone, I really get to have that time for myself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, talking to some people, I know that for others, their favorite way to, I guess, practice self-care might be to go to a big social event and have those connections with other people. But for me personally, it's always about kind of like being on my own time, doing the things that make me happy, whether it be like watching my favorite show or like reading my favorite book, listening to music, anything that kind of just like lets me be on my own time and not have to worry about everything else that's like stressful, school and outside work and things like that. So anything that'll help me just kind of like take my mind off of the outside world. Um, how do you guys think that self-care has been impacted by society? Like, how has it impacted the way that we look at self-care? And I'll go ahead and start this one off. I think with today's society, we're so into basically like hustle culture and just always like on the grind and always having to be doing multiple things all at once, multitasking, trying to get, or I guess be the most productive that you possibly can be. And that can be a good thing in some respects, but In other ways, that can be really detrimental, especially as a student when you're trying to juggle all these different things. You know, like me being a senior, trying to juggle like schoolwork along with college apps. That can be like really stressful. And so when we look at self care, I think it's important to take, I guess, like take it with a grain of salt. You know, yes, it's good to be like productive and trying to push yourself to work really hard, but it's also really important to set aside that time to make sure that you don't get burnt out. And I think with the way that we look at productivity and hustle culture, it's really easy to get burnt out these days. So that's why self care is so important.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of people that influence you and like tell you that if you're not doing something productive, then you're just wasting your time. And I really disagree with that, because if you're not doing something that you're still doing something productive by taking care of yourself. And I feel like that just makes you a better person overall, even if you always want to be on the grind, you want to work hard, like, and stuff like that. But a break is what you do, what you really do need to make yourself better, and so you don't get burned out. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so like what you mentioned about like how sometimes people say, "Oh, if you're not productive, like you're kind of just wasting time." I like totally disagree with that. I think like there needs to be like this balance between both, and if like it's like a scale. So if you don't have that balance, just like kind of like you get thrown off. Like if you do too much work but you don't take time for yourself, you just like eventually like you'll be like so burnt out you can't even focus on that same work. So it's just really important because again it's like a balance.
You know, I feel like people should take self-care and like have self-care in order to be more productive because like if you're always productive and you don't take some time to unwind, you're just going to get burnt out and you won't be able to focus as well as you would if you just like take a break and then continue with what you're doing. So I feel like it's really important just to take a break and just to listen to yourself when you need to.
Yeah, that's really true. Listening to yourself and knowing when you need to take a break is really important. Um, I guess my next question, what happens if we're inconsistent with self care? And is consistency important?
I feel like in terms of consistency, it could just mean like you're not like ignoring your needs and your needs to like take a break. So if your body's telling you like, "Oh my God, I need to take a break," but you're ignoring that, I think that's like being inconsistent and of course, again, that could lead to burnout and you just not being able to focus on things.
Because like for it's different for a lot of people. Some people may need it every day, some people maybe don't need self-care as much as others. But yeah, I agree, your mind and your body will tell you when you're burning out and you need a break. So that is how you stay consistent, is by listening to yourself.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about listening to yourself is really important because sometimes maybe like you'll see someone who like is on the grind 24/7, but that like it doesn't mean you have to be like that too. Like it's important to take breaks and you don't know how that person actually is like mentally, even though they look like they're like doing fine. So it's just like it's really you have to listen to yourself, no one else, and you shouldn't like rely on people to like see like, oh, should I take a break for myself? Like should I kind of just like lay back a bit? I think listening to yourself is important.
Yeah, especially what you said, comparing yourself to other people can be really harmful because maybe somebody looks like they're really doing well and they're being super productive, but you never really know the other half of it. There could be another side to it. And for me, when I'm inconsistent with giving myself self care, things like that, it's just easier if you stick to a schedule. Like if you say, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes or an hour of a break today, and you stick to that same schedule every day, then it starts becoming part of your routine. And once you stray away from that routine, it can be really hard to get back in it. So just trying to keep consistency can be really important for making sure that you are actually practicing self care. The next question is, Is there an unhealthy type of self care? And what would that look like?
When I actually like made that question up, I was thinking about like how sometimes how like self-care is marketed towards women or just people in general with like social media and everything. And I was actually thinking of like cosmetic procedures and how like sometimes they're like, oh, for instance, if you don't get Botox, you're not taking care of yourself. So I was thinking like, is there some kind of unhealthy self-care where you keep on doing things because you're unhappy with yourself?
That's true, and social media really plays a big role in that, and it all comes back to, comparing yourself to what you see online, and obviously what's online isn't always true. And some people, they do make changes because they're unhappy with maybe how they feel about themselves. But again, it's all tied into self care because practicing the things that make you happy will also change the way that you feel about yourself. And maybe you won't have to do these things to change, you won't have to change things about yourself because you'll be practicing things to make yourself better, pretty much.
Yeah, that's um like a really great way to look at it. I didn't That's not what I thought about when I like heard the question. The thing that came to my mind was like, are you it's like, yes, prioritizing yourself is the number one priority, but are you like deteriorating your social life by giving yourself all this like me time? Are you giving yourself too much me time? Are you like canceling your plans with all your friends, your family, and like you're just you're just like being alone all the time? But I still don't see why that would be that bad if all those plans that you're canceling aren't going to bring you happiness anyways. So why don't you just like take the time to yourself? So that's what I was thinking. So I guess, yeah, your guys' point about how self-care could be like detrimental would make more sense.
That also makes sense too, though. If you're in a situation you think this might not be the best fit for you, telling yourself that it's okay to cancel plans, that's also a really important thing to be able to do because you might feel like maybe you're letting other people down by not showing up to some sort of social event or anything like that. But in the end, if it's not going to make you happy or it might harm your mental health, then it's really important to say that you're just going to take a break or you're not going to go to something that day. So that's a really important part of self care. How can somebody make time for self care if they have very little time? That's my next question.
So like I think like a lot of times people have like the wrong idea of self care. So they'll like when I didn't really know what self care was, I always thought of it as like, getting a massage or like, I don't know, getting your nails done or like, like something like that, which is like kind of time consuming. But like it's not that hard to make like it well, of course it depends on what type of self care you prefer or what like methods help you. But honestly, like finding like you guys were saying like sleeping, that's like not really something like although it's time consuming, it's like it doesn't really require too much time. Sometimes even like organizing is a way of self care. Like people find like pleasure in like having like being organized and like cleaning your room, let's say. There's like so many other like different things to do. Like let's say just I mean social gatherings do take time, but if you find like the little time, like if you maybe even appreciate just like being with people, that's like one way of like self care. If you're like more of a social type of person, being alone is another way. Just like being in your room by yourself, that helps. But yeah, I think just like kind of appreciating the time you have, like whatever makes you happy, those little things. It's honestly just like a good way of self care. Doesn't have to really be something that takes like too much time.
Yeah, what like for me, like how I made time for myself for self-care, like especially my senior year of high school, like what Claire said, there were so many things happening that you couldn't really find time for yourself. So what I did was I just woke up a little bit earlier than when I would normally wake up to go to school, and sometimes I would work out, sometimes I just like chill there, sometimes I'd make food for myself, but it's just the idea of like knowing that you're taking care of yourself by yourself and there's no distractions and it's just everything you're doing is for you. And I think that's like a way that someone could make time if they're really busy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You know, self care doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of time, it can be anything small. And like Sarah said, even just making your bed. Like, I know for me, if I have a messy room and my bed's not made, it will stress me out. So just, you know, organizing things and making my bed and taking the time to do those little things, that can really help for different people and in different ways. So any little thing doesn't have to take time, it can just be small things. Those can all contribute to self care, which is, I think, pretty important and maybe something that not everybody knows or realizes. Couple more questions. How much time does a person need for self care each day? And obviously, it's going to vary person by person, but I guess just personally for you guys, how much time do you set aside for self care?
Um, I like make it like a thing like every Friday, like when I come from school. I just like spend the whole evening. Like if I don't have any homework or anything, I just spend the whole evening just sleeping or watching movies. And that's kind of like my one designated day for self-care. And maybe also Saturdays, but like I try to do it on Fridays. So yeah, that could take like a couple of hours for me personally, but I try to like really rest up so I'm like reset for the next week.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about like the Fridays. That's kind of my day when I do my self-care too. So like all throughout the week while I'm in college, I have due dates and stuff like this I need to worry about. So even if I want to have like a self-care day on like a Wednesday, it would still be on my mind that I have something due the next day and stuff like that. But for Friday, it's really when the week has wrapped up for me and like I have nothing to worry about. So I really take about like a minimum 30 minutes at night at least to just myself, if like just reading or like watching something. Um, and it's really nice to just relax and not have anything to like worry about. Like I don't even check my like my school schedule for the next week, like stuff like that. But like
I don't know if I would say like I have like a designated time for self care, but I really like listening to music. Like I think that's just one way for me. Like I'll listen to music during the bus, during home like doing homework, like walking. I'll listen to music really anytime, and I just find like that's one way. Like once I put like block off the noise, it like really helps me. But also like stuff like playing a sport. So like for me, volleyball, that's just another way of self care because a lot of times I'll have like practice, but I'll also have homework to do the same day, and I'm like, I know like I really need to do the homework, but like really want to play too. And a lot of times I'm like, I know if I don't play and practice, like I'm just gonna be doing the homework for the rest of the day. So I'm like, I'll just practice, like go to practice and I'll play, like, cause I know that helps me. And like when I come back, I'll do homework, but yeah, I'll just find like really anything. So music, like sports, like I'll just anything that like makes me happy is honestly self care for me.
Yeah, I like totally agree with Sarah. Like every morning, I also listen to music and my whole album that I have. And those are like the ways that I use like every day. Like it's like a small step towards self-care, but it makes me feel really nice.
Yeah, that's true. Those are all really great ways, especially music. That's something you can do while you're maybe doing other things. You can listen to music while you're doing homework or, you know, walking, taking your dog on a walk. So that's a really great way that you can implement it into your life. I think that this is the end of our podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can check out more of our content. We've got articles, we've got an artwork gallery, lots of things you can check out on our website, thehavencommunity.net. Go check it out. Yeah, thank you guys for listening again, and have a great day. Bye, everyone.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Have a good day.